Today I'm visiting with a friend named Steve Whitlock. Many of you know Steve Whitlock as one of Florida's leading game fish artists. You see him at CCA events, you see him at art festivals, you see him at all kinds of conservation stuff. But what you don't know about Steve Whitlock is where he learned to paint. You're about to find out how this all happened. It's a unique story.
Hey, CA.
Hey, buddy. Long time no
Welcome.
see. What has it been, a week?
Yeah, almost asked the Seafood Festival last week. That was a great show this year.
So you come into someone's house and you're expecting to see a house, but you basically have an art gallery right here and a studio.
Yeah. I've always worked right here in this room. Everything I've ever painted has been right here.
Well, I want to really unveil who Steve Whitlock really is, because you have a reputation as one of Florida's best representative game fish artists in the business.
Thank you.
But there's a backstory that I want everyone to know.
Big time.
Yeah. Let's
Yep.
have a seat.
We'll talk about it.
Well, you know, I did a little research on you, and I found out a few things. One I did not know is you're from Tampa originally.
Mm-hmm.
You were born in Tampa.
Yeah, 1959.
In 1959. And, you know, I grew up in Pinellas County, lived there for over 50 years. I hate telling people that I'm that old, but I lived there for over 50 years. And it's just ironic that you were right across the bay and I didn't know it, but your family made a move, and I'll let you talk about that.
Yeah, my dad moved to Tampa for work. He was a plasterer.
Mm-hmm.
So I was born in Tampa. They left South Carolina with like $50 on a Greyhound bus.
Wow.
And Dad got work in Tampa. And my grandparents had a fish camp. My dad's parents had a fish camp in South Carolina. It caught fire and burned down. So Dad had to leave there to find work. So he came to Florida because it was booming. My grandfather was actually born in Dothan, Alabama. And my dad was born in Miami in 1929. So, I mean, they went through the Depression years and the 35 hurricane in Miami. My dad
Oh yeah,
remembers all
that was a great hurricane.
So that's my hereditary. And then my grandparents on my other side owned a tackle store and boat ramp at Wilson's Landing on the Santee River coming out of Lake Marion in South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
So I was exposed to both the fish camp as a toddler in diapers still, and then all through my teen years going up to South Carolina for the summers and spending our time there at Grandma's camp.
This is how crazy this is. Our paths have probably crossed so many times because I was born in Charleston. So my dad was a Navy guy out of that port there, you know, forever and a day. And then he took work in Dothan. So I was very familiar with Lake Eufaula and Enterprise, Alabama, where Fort Rooker was and all that. And it's just amazing how small the world is. People you think you know, you don't know. I'm just looking at some of my notes here. So what brought you to Naples?
Parents moved to Naples after Tampa. We moved back to Carolina for a period of time and eventually made our way back down here. And we lived in Ochopee, Florida, in the middle of the Everglades. Mm-hmm. My grandfather worked for my great uncle. My great uncle, Bill Rogers, owned a whole section of land at Turn River Road, northwest of 41.
Okay.
So a mile north and a mile west on 41, the headwaters of Turner River. So it was the Turner River Jungle Gardens in the 60s. My grandfather dug it all out, made the nature trails, built the buildings. Mm-hmm. My dad ran a swamp buggy and airboats. We had a real Seminole Indian village there. I was 5 years old, 6 years old at the time. So I learned to swim and turn a river with Seminole kids. That's my early recollection. First memories I have of fishing is fishing Turner River with a cane pole.
Wow.
So that's how it all started. And then they got in a riff, my uncle or great uncle and my grandfather got in a riff about something, and they closed the place down. And the park eventually bought it all up and turned it into, now it's a canoe launch and boat ramp there. So we moved to Naples, and my dad took plaster work in Naples. And I lived there for 31 years before going to Ringling.
Yeah. And your life as a plasterer working with your dad was only so long before you decided, and I could not believe that you were a fishing guide.
Oh, yeah, man.
Yeah, you went right into guiding.
Yeah, I got licensed, I think, the first time, 84, 85. And then after I got out of Ringling, I went back and got my license back again and guided at Hughes here in Sarasota Bay for a time. But the art business took off so fast, and my time was built developing more artwork, and I was losing money trying to fish. I was running a plaster business while I went to school full-time at Ringling around my class schedule. And then after that, I started guiding and plastering, and I had to give something up.
Yeah, yeah. There's too many balls.
There's too many things to juggle all the time. There wasn't enough hours in the day. So I really focused on creating inventory and volume so I could kind of pursue this side of the career. I mean, I spent a lot of money going to Ringling, so.
For me to see someone like yourself draw such and paint such perfect imitations of life, because my job allows me to be in the field every day, and I see stuff like that every day, spoonbills on cypress roots, and I look at that and I'm like, I appreciate that, because that is exactly what I see.
Yeah.
When you're looking at contemporary art or something like that, and people pay thousands and thousands of dollars for this style of art, you look at it and you're like, well, it's nice. But you're looking at it more like, well, those colors go good in my living room or something like that. Where it looks like I'm looking out a window at something I see every day.
And I fish that same spot. That's Rattlesnake Point in South Tampa Bay, north of Manatee.
Gosh, it's just beautiful.
Just north of Manatee River.
Just pieces like what I see when I walk around here is gorgeous.
Well, my mentor was named Dick Kramer, and he once told me, he says, paint what you see, not what you think you see.
There's a lot of truth in everything in life.
A lot of truth there. And he also said, you sell a painting once, you sell a print 500 times. So that stuck. Those two things stuck in my head.
So you say you went to Ringling. Where did you first learn to paint? Because I mean, you had to be a young person to get to this point, because the articulation and how perfect everything is, that didn't come overnight. So where did you learn?
Well, it's funny, because when I was in high school, Naples High School was the only high school in Naples at the time. And I took mechanical drafting for 2 years.
So did I.
So it had to be a small world.
So did I.
I think that's where my tightness came from, my sense of perspective. And
well, it makes me understand the draftsman drawers and the tables and everything in here perfectly. You are organized.
Yeah. But I really didn't pick up this career, I guess, until I fell off that building in '93. I fell off 2 stories and got hurt. And I had to find another career. So that's when I applied to Ringling, and they accepted me. So I took my workman's comp money.
And went right to school.
And went to college. We sold our house in Naples, bought this old house up here, started remodeling it, ran a plaster repair business around my school schedule full time, and made it work. It was a challenge, man. I got a wife, a kid, a daughter.
Gladiator mode.
You can't fail. There's no room for failure.
So there's a piece here that looks like someplace that I fish, okay? I do a lot of fishing in Wakasasa Bay and around the Swanee and around Cedar, and I do a lot of fishing in Yankeetown, with the absence of too many mangroves, lots of cabbage palms, cypress like that, and sawgrass and whatnot. Where is this?
In my head.
It's in your head.
I made it up.
You made it up.
Yeah.
And what was the inspiration, or where were you when you painted it?
I had a lot of free time on my hand.
You had a lot of free time.
Yeah. So I had a lot of free time. The backstory on this whole thing is I did 4 years in the Navy. I got out 3 months early. My dad got hurt on a job.
Okay.
And needed me home to help him run the plaster business. So the Navy was kind enough to let me out a little bit early. So I got into the plaster business with my dad about 92, 93. And then that big downturn in the economy happened in the early 90s, and everything started crashing. Well, we were overextended and underfunded, and we're about to lose everything we had in our business. So we were invited to do a little night work, so to speak.
A night shift.
Yeah, the night shift came on. So I got involved in marijuana smuggling with some friends of mine in Naples. And
Really?
my dad and my partner and myself, we helped unload 25,000 pounds one night off of Naples.
And how much money did that equate to?
Well, it was a lot of money, but you know, as the job I had was an offloader,
Yeah.
you know, that pays $5 grand, 10 grand, whatever. If you're on a boat and it's not your boat, you're just a helper. So that's kind of the level I was at that. But I ended up making like 30 grand on that deal because I drove all the weed from Naples to Homestead to Dodge's store in Homestead. Parked the truck and went inside, had my dog with me, and went inside the store, had a beer, and came out, the truck was gone. About an hour later, the truck comes back. I drive it back to Naples. A week later, I get a paper sack full of cash. I said, damn, that was easy. So my dad and my partner and I all did it on that job, and it made enough money to get rid of our debt. And my dad said, to hell with it. He went and bought a grouper boat and went fishing. Mm-hmm. My partner went his way, and I kept doing what I was doing.
You were hearing Glenn Fry in the background playing Smugglers Blues.
Hereditary, dude. Great uncle and great granddaddy were rum runners out of Catcade, Miami back in the day in Prohibition, and they would bring sailboats full of rum and gin in, truck it to Chicago. And
wow,
my grandfather said that they would take it into the city hall parking garage in Chicago, and the cops would unload the trucks. They'd go have a drink with the mayor and come back. And that's the way business was done.
So the whole art business really started
because of that.
Because of running marijuana.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
We're going to talk more about that, but I see this hallway in here, and I would love for you to show me, because some of that stuff in there is pencil drawings.
A lot of it's pencil art. Because for the first 13 years of my career, I illustrated navigational charts.
Mm-hmm. Which that's how I first got introduced to you,
I'll tell you how
buying
that
those
happened.
pieces.
My senior year at Ringling, my buddy and I went down and fished the Coconuts Dolphin Tournament, right, in the Keys in Islamorada. And there was another artist there, and she was kind of doodling on charts with pen and ink. And I said, wow, that's pretty cool, you know. And I'd already done a piece. I did a piece on a map my senior year at Ringling for a project we were doing with juvenile delinquents. And they wrote essays about what they wanted to do when they got out of their problems. And my kid wanted to drive a truck across the world, so I took a Rand McNally map, drew an 18-wheeler on it, coming over it.
That's cool.
And it was pretty cool. That kind of started the whole map thing, the chart thing. But after seeing the chart drawings in the Keys, I said, wow, that's pretty cool. And I stayed out of the Keys. I didn't want to mess with her market.
Right.
So I started, the first piece I did was Everglades City. I did an Everglades chart with a redfish and a skiff on it. Did the Everglades City Seafood Festival. I was so primitive, I had 5-foot office dividers for art panels in my booth. I had palmettos I'd cut off to decorate the booth. It was so primitive compared to what I am now.
From those Seminole Village days of yours.
Yeah, I'm surprised I didn't build a cheeky over the top of it. But that's how it all started. Anything, you know, but once I was in the marijuana business, I was continued to do it off and on for a few years. And then I got invited to do a job. I'd actually just got back from Panama. I'd gone down to Panama to look at a little thing they wanted me to do. And I backed out of that. It was a cocaine deal.
Yeah.
And I backed far, far away from it. But you can't tell them no, you're in Colombia with these guys, or in Panama with these guys. If you tell them no, you don't come home.
That's right. Yeah. That's
so I had to come up with a story.
Yeah.
I was down there 4 days with these guys, these cartel dudes. And I said, here's the deal, guys. I said, when's your boat going to be fixed? They said, maybe a week. I said, I can't stay here a week. I got a thing going on. I got to go home, take care of this thing I got. I didn't have a thing.
Yeah.
I just wanted to get out of there and back home in one piece. And when I got back, a friend of mine approached me about doing something in Pine Island, driving a boat for him. I didn't have the hauling pot, just take a guy to the big boat.
Yep.
You know, put him on the boat, don't put any weed in his boat, et cetera, et cetera. Everything went off fine, no problems. And 2 years later, I get a knock on the door at 3 in the morning. It's 4 car fulls of feds surrounding my house. I got fanked out on the whole deal. So they got me 2 years after on a conspiracy charge. They never busted a seed of weed on the whole operation. They had me on 2. They had me on 25,000 pounds and 18,000 pound loads back to back, shrimp boat and snapper boat. So I pled it down to 1 count of conspiracy. And the judge was kind enough to give me 5 years, which I thought was a deal at the time. So
yeah,
that's how it all started. I had to go to the Federal Boy Scout camp for a couple of years. Ended up doing 26 months.
And you painted something like that out of your head, out of your head. And that led to all of this now.
All of this.
And I'm telling you, what a success story.
I mean, still baffles me.
Oh, I got more questions for you.
Yeah, I
but
still
let's
get
go.
emotional about it because it's, you know, it's like I'm Cinderella instead of Cinderella.
You are definitely Cinderella. In fact, might even be titled that in this piece that we're doing.
So in the early 2000s, right after Ringling, I graduated in '98. I started looking for a theme to do. I started illustrating navigational charts. I used to be a charter boat captain, so always had an interest in nav charts. And so I started doing some about 2000, and the first one sold really quickly, and I saw there was a big demand for that. So I did an Everglades one first. The second one I did was Fort Myers with a snook. And then from that, I've expanded into probably doing nearly 70 of these things, from New England to Texas, Puerto Rico, Costa Rica, Alaska.
Well, I have 2 of them because I love the idea of having the game fish art on the chart because it reminds me of the same thing. It was sea school, and it was just an image that was burned in your mind, just like the opening to Walker's Cay Chronicles would flip palette.
Yeah.
So I mean, every time I saw art like this that was on a chart, the first thing that would come in my head, that's a Whitlock. That's what I would always say. That's a Whitlock. I know it's got to be a Whitlock because he's the only guy that does stuff this good.
There's a couple other people in the country doing it. One guy does pen and inks of ships, sailing ships mostly, but really no one's doing to this level, and then publishing it like I do, and then marketing it like I do.
Yeah, you've done a fantastic job. And as I move through here, I just love the magnitude of how big these pieces are because then the artwork can be so much better. I mean, that would be a favorite of mine. I was an Evinrude guy for 17 years.
That's an old Maverick.
It's a Master Angler Maverick because it's got the V6 on it.
Yeah, the story on that, I was at the boat ramp and a guide was coming in with clients on the boat, and I asked him if I was looking for a skiff shot, good skiff shot. So I asked him if I could shoot his boat. So he got on the platform, pulled his angler up. I said, cast right at me. I waded out in the water with my 35 and shot pictures so I could do that. I have to shoot good photo reference to do this. You can't paint what you don't see.
Right.
My mentor says, paint what you see, not what you think you see.
So
it's important to do that. The biggest thing is marketing location to species.
Yeah.
If you don't do that, it doesn't work. You can't sell snook in Tallahassee. So, I mean,
that's the
that
marketing
simple,
end
you know?
of it. And what's really cool about this is then I see all this is pencil art basically. And do all paintings start off with because I don't know anything. I'm telling you, there's zero art talent in me. Do they start off like this and then you paint them? No.
Typically, my artwork starts out as a simple line drawing. I'll transfer my sketch to my chart or my canvas or whatever I'm working on. And I work typically from photos as much as possible. There again, all your information's in the photo. You just got to transform it into a piece of artwork. But the pencils, you can do these in gray tone like this.
They're beautiful.
Seal them and then go over them with paint. Your values, your lights or darks are already there.
Right.
So you can just basically put light washes of acrylic or watercolor over that, and you can turn it into a color piece. I take reproductions of these and hand color them with color pencil.
Okay.
It's an almost instant way to turn a black and white into a color piece. And people like it when I'm at Bass Pro Shops doing my print signings and shirt signings with them. I'll sit there and just do pencil after pencil after pencil just to kill time. And I'm sitting there talking to people and drawing, and I'm not even looking at it sometimes. Just to kind of know where my hand is.
I don't know how you guys do it. 'Cause like that piece that you have inside the studio there, I mean, is that close to finish?
It's right there, yeah.
It's right there.
Yeah, I just got a couple little teeny tiny things I want to do that nobody else would notice but me. But
I don't know. I mean, it just, how does it get from your head to your hand to the paper and look so scale? That's it. To me, it's like a magic trick. It's like watching someone do magic.
It's it's basic drawing skills and composition is a part of it. But when someone talks to me about a piece of art or an idea they have, it starts out as a snapshot in my head what I want it to look like.
Yeah.
And some of my clients try to tell me how they want me to do it.
Yeah.
Right. I'll stop. I'm gonna do it the way I want to do it.
Because it's gonna be
I'll
better.
take your ideas, but let me do it the way I want to do it. If you don't like it, I'll do another one for you.
Yeah.
It's like my Boca Grande piece that I showed you guys.
Beautiful.
That piece is gorgeous, and the client wanted me to put a snook underwater, a boat above water. I said, listen, I'm gonna put a tarpon in the lighthouse, and the line's coming out of the tarpon's mouth into the water. You're in the boat.
Yeah.
Why paint somebody else's boat into it?
That's right.
So a lot of my images will have line coming out of their mouth, and that puts you into the painting.
That's right.
So you're looking into it instead of looking out from the outside.
Very cerebral.
Yeah.
Can
Well,
you show us the reference pic to that
I have to take a
spoonbill
minute to
piece?
pull it up on the computer. Yeah,
Yeah,
we
let's
can do
look
that.
at it. So basically, a piece like this one that you have set on the easel starts from a photograph,
Yes.
and you basically visualize the photograph and you paint it. Because I mean, I still don't see how you can see something and then see something and still. I want to see the photograph for this.
All right.
How did that work?
Well, I start out by shooting a lot of photographs. When I'm typically out my boat fishing, I'm constantly shooting photos. And I find my cell phone shoots better pictures than my 35mm does.
Really?
Yeah, and plus it's instant. I can instantly download it or upload it. I save it to my computer.
Yeah, it makes it
send it to
easier.
myself as an email,
Yeah.
and then I save it. I've got thousands of images in this computer. And the reference photo I did this one from is right here. There's the photo I started from.
Oh wow.
And you know,
Yeah,
it's got
you can see the trunk.
yeah, light and shadow. It's got some bright spots. The beautiful, you can tell the water, you know. And this piece I decided not to put a fish in. I had a snook in it. I didn't like it. I took it out. I wanted to do something without a fish for a change, which is unusual. 'Cause everything I do has fish in it.
I think this appeals though to a wider audience too, though, because you're gonna your audience that loves your game fish renditions, they appreciate the roseate spoonbill.
Yes.
And just to see the the scenery in this is so lifelike.
The reference for one of the spoonbills here was this picture, was shot at the Tampa Aquarium. So I shoot
Shot at the Tampa Aquarium,
Yeah.
he ends up in a piece on a
Now here
mangrove
it
root
is.
system. Wow.
I turned him loose back in
You turned him loose.
Yeah.
You really
Yeah.
turned him loose. I
But
can't.
that's how it starts, is off a photo. A lot of times I'll paint things places I fished, places I love.
Mm-hmm. I guess that adds a little extra passion
It
to
does.
do it the right way.
And it's curious too, because I'll paint a piece like this once in a while, and somebody will recognize where it is.
Wow.
Like I did a piece that's called First Jump. It's a tarpon down in just below Goodland, a place we call Poon Lagoon.
Right?
And we would go soak catfish tails in there.
Yeah.
Because tarpon love hardheads.
People don't know that little secret.
we put it
That's
in-
old school
Yeah,
stuff.
we'd put it in the boat ramp at Goodland to catch half a dozen hardheads real quick while the guys parking the boat trailer.
Yeah.
Cut their heads and tails off and take them out to the flat or up in the mangroves. And in Poon Lagoon, we would basically soak a catfish tail on the edge of the mangroves because tarpon are looking
Yep.
for
Making a
crabs,
loop. Yeah.
making a loop. And you get hooked up. But I've had a number of people say, "Oh, I know where that is." A lot of people think it's cow pens in Alvarado because it looks a lot like cow
Like it.
pens, but it's actually Poon Lagoon. So it's got a personal connection to the places I fish.
Honestly, looking at this stuff and understanding how you do it, it's still to me, it's still magic. It's still witchcraft to
But
me.
you can't paint what you can't see.
And you've said that several times.
Yeah.
You said that several times.
Yeah.
And then I always go back to that photograph that you literally painted blind in a prison.
Well, being raised in the Everglades, that looks like any spot off 41
Yeah.
around Ochopee somewhere. It looks
Yeah.
very similar to that. But I just made it up out of my head, right
Jeez.
down to the ironheads
Wow.
flying by. And I didn't know you couldn't paint watercolor opaquely. Nobody ever told me.
Yeah.
And so I went from watercolor to acrylic as
To
my
acrylic.
medium of choice, and with pencil in between. I'm very versatile in oils. I do watercolor. I can do pastel. I can do any of the mediums because Ringling taught me all that stuff. But I've squared away on the acrylic stuff because it's fast. It's easy to work with if you know what you're doing. But you got to paint layers from back to forward. Everything's done in steps. You don't paint around things. You paint things on top of things.
Right.
Oil, you can paint around things and move it around a little bit. This, it's all layers.
I'll tell you
Takes
what,
forever.
I have soaked in a lot of stuff, but what I want to soak in right now is my favorite place to eat when I come down this way, and that's going to Walt's. See
Oh,
Brett
yeah.
Wallen and
Let's
go over
see
there
Brett and get a beer.
and go
Maybe
get a
have
beer
something
and
to eat.
probably a grouper sandwich.
Oh yeah, man. It's actually a real grouper there.
He runs the fish house. Every time I've walked by this piece, it just amazes me that Hurricane Ian just about took that whole zone completely out now. But it'll be back.
It'll be back. It's a shame, because everything in that chart got wiped out.
Oh, and this is pretty cool here. Not only do you have your art design diploma, but you actually have a pardon from the President of the United States.
Only guy on the street that's got one of those.
I bet you are.
Yeah.
I bet you are. That is amazing.
Yeah, we didn't know anybody. We did the paperwork. The first thing I did is I got a part of Governor Childs after I was off parole. They let me off parole a year early, which is like unheard of. But I was in school and doing the right things. And so I applied to Governor Childs, and he gave me a part to get my voting rights back. And once I got that, I happened to run in my old PO, and he says, apply for a presidential pardon, I'll vouch for you. And we sent the paperwork in. It's an online application process. And 2007 is when I got it. It was December 11 of 07. I'm hanging a show with Bass Pro. We're vendors with Bass Pro Shops. And so I'm hanging a show in Miami at the new store, and I get a phone call. And I put him on hold because I didn't know who it was. I said, hold on a second. Well, pick up the phone, and it's Roger Adams, United States Pardon Attorney. Right before Christmas. He says, on behalf of the President of the United States, Merry Christmas. That's the call.
That was the call. Yeah.
That's the call.
Yeah. Well, I know that one will choke you up a little bit, but that was a great Christmas present. Best one you've ever gotten.
All these years later, that still hangs me up.
Yep. Well, I'll tell you, Steve, this guy here,
I love it, man.
Brett, runs a great business out of here.
It's my favorite restaurant.
Fresh seafood and some of the best eats. It's like
yeah.
anytime I have to go through Sarasota, I want to come here. One of the cool things, as soon as we walked in, I looked up when I walked around the table and I saw one of your pieces sitting right there.
Yeah. There's another one in the men's room.
Is there one in the men's room?
Always. I'd rather be in the ladies' room so I could visit it, but that's okay.
I can see something right now that you're probably going to want.
Let me guess. The square grouper
The
sandwich?
square grouper sandwich.
I don't know.
That one is made for you to order.
What's on the side? Oh, burlap comes on the side. With
Yeah, of course.
I'll
tell you what. The one thing inside the studio that I forgot to ask you, and it dawned on me when we were riding over, is the whale shark story. What the hell was that about?
Well, it was kind of a freak. I was offshore grouper fishing with some buddies of mine, 3 of us on an Everglades boat. And we were on the way back in. It was kind of 4 to 6, pretty choppy, blown up a little bit. And ahead of the boat, I saw what I thought was an overturned boat. It looked like a skeg of an outboard sitting up. It was actually the tail of a whale shark. And I always take my snorkel gear and GoPro with me when I go offshore, no matter what I'm doing. In the Keys.
Yeah, that's how you get all. That's how. Yeah.
Right? You don't have time to say, wait a minute, I got to go home and get my camera, right? So he put me on top of the fish. I rolled over the side. I got 2 or 3 minutes of killer video hanging onto the dorsal fin. I've seen them before. I've never gotten in the water with one, but that was a pretty cool video. Got a lot of hits on it.
All the places I've been in my life, I've never seen anything like that. I've seen manta rays. I even saw a whale one time, but I've never seen a whale shark. And I mean, I know they happen out here along Southwest Florida, from time to time. But that must have been just one of those epic
30,
moments.
40 feet long, probably.
Yeah.
And I stayed with it a few minutes, but it was cool. If you listen to the video and you saw the video, you hear my buddies hollering and hooting.
Oh, yeah.
Because I had it by the dorsal. And
Yeah.
trying to hold my GoPro like this.
Well, I'll tell you what, I can't thank you enough for hanging out with us today.
Cool.
I mean, that was an epic story, and really one of those stories for me that shows how someone turns their life around and just makes a huge contribution to community and to themselves and to their family. And it just proves you pull yourself up by your bootstraps, you can do anything.
You do anything you want, and people don't understand that. You don't have to be stuck in what you're doing.
Yeah.
Make a decision and just change it.
That's right.
I mean, it's that simple, but once I committed, there's no going back. When I said I'm going to do something, I had a wife and a family.
That's right.
I had to start over in my 30s, my mid-30s. But look at me now,
Yeah.
It all started because I started picking up watercolors while I was in the federal prison system.
That's right.
And I couldn't have been treated any better considering where I was at.
That's right.
I mean, they were very professional.
I'll tell you what, we got to go fishing sometime.
I'd love to go fishing.
We'll make sure that we put something in the calendar before we leave Walt's today.
I would love to do that.
All right. Well, let's get Brittany over here and order some food.
All right, I like that. Let's see.